Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Breakthrough Real Estate Investing Podcast. As usual, here with me again is Mr. Sandy McKay. How's it going, Sandy?
Fantastic, Rob. How are you today?
Very good, very good. The sun's shining here for now, so I'm super pumped about that. It's been a little rainy for the last few days, so hoping to get out after this and work a little on tanning up here. You know?
Yeah.
But
well, you're in Costa Rica. You better look the part.
Yeah, I'm falling off in that department. That's for sure. I have to get up on that soon. How are things with you?
Fantastic, really. Summertime in Canada, can't complain. And also great market for buying real estate in a lot of ways. So as much as we talk about people hear about the pain of whatever's happening in the market, I mean, there's lots of great opportunities right now. So I think from an investor standpoint, it's actually a pretty exciting time.
Yeah. So if you're thinking of buying something in Hamilton area, maybe reach out to Sandy and get that straightened out.
Maybe. And then, and if there's so much to talk about around that. It all depends on everyone's goals and everything. But there's just so much opportunity there. I want to keep saying that because everyone's all scared about where the market's going and everything. And
right.
For some people, rightfully so here and there. But there's just so much opportunity in that too. So it's really an exciting time. And yeah.
Well, everybody knows that they should go over to our website, breakthroughreipodcast.ca, and there they can look at all the episodes that we've done over the last over 8 years now, and they'll be able to connect with all the guests that we've talked to. So there you can just go into the show notes, and if they found somebody particularly interesting or they want to reach out to them for whatever reason, all their contact info is in there, so they can go over and listen to the show that way, and get our free gift.
Free gift, the ultimate strategy for building wealth through real estate. So still, you can go pick that up at breakthroughreipodcast.ca. And as you do that, you'll get on our list too. So you never miss out on a show and never miss out on any other great things we got going on, any events and that sort of thing. Including, Rob, they've already missed it probably, but your Costa Rica tour that's coming up in a few months. I think I heard we were sold out, right?
The investor event is sold out, and we've got a wait list now, and we'll be doing more. We'll talk about that more later, but yeah, there'll be more coming up. And we did it in conjunction with Durham REI this time. I think we're going to be reaching out to a few other people because I've just been getting so much interest in that. So after this one is over, then we'll start working on the next one and people can come down and see what it's all about here. But yeah, it's been really interesting and hope to have many more.
Awesome. What else we got to talk about?
Well, they got to go to iTunes, right? Leave us a rating and review.
Obviously. That
helps the show get out there to more people and people that are looking for this kind of content that'll be more readily available to them. So go over to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review, leave us some tips, maybe leave us a review, something you want to hear about, a topic that we haven't touched on, maybe a guest that you recommend. Whatever it is, go over there, write us a rating and review. Helps a lot.
Absolutely. And it helps us share more great Canadian content. And I've certainly got a great guest here lined up for today. And I think let's get to it. Right, Rob?
Absolutely. Yeah, let's do it.
Perfect. Let's welcome in here Jeff Reitzel. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks. Great to be here.
Awesome. I'll give you a brief intro, and you can share a bit more about who you are and where you've come from. But Jeff is a husband, father, mentor, philanthropist, an active real estate broker and mortgage broker, and real estate investor. And he's shared the stage with many other great real estate, entrepreneurs and leaders. Gary Keller, Dave Jenks. He's contributed to Quantum Leap, which is a course for young adults, and there's a lot more we can talk about. You've got some cool stuff going on in Ghana, where you're doing some charitable work there, which is exciting. And really, your purpose in life is to help and mentor others. And today, through this interview, you'll get a glimpse into your passion for that and how you can make a positive difference in people's lives. So, really excited to have you here, Jeff. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, great. Yeah, again, thanks to be here. And, I always love the opportunity and thanks for everything you guys do too in giving people the opportunity to hear from others that are investing and doing stuff. We all do things so differently. And what I talk about today and how I invest in real estate is going to resonate with some people. And the guest you had 2 weeks ago is going to resonate with somebody else. So this platform really is amazing, and it provides a lot of value to a lot of different individuals. So you mentioned there that in my bio that, first and foremost, I am a husband and a father. And then I would say a mentor and a philanthropist. And that really defines who I am. The rest of the stuff that you mentioned is not who I am. It actually fuels who I am and what I do. So to go back to the beginning for me and how I got started investing in real estate. I was investing in the stock market. And I'm going to take you back to when I was 14 years old. I was actually investing $800 a month at 14. I was working at Wendy's for $5.05 an hour. And one of the first books I had ever read, and I've had the privilege of getting to know this individual over the years, was Dave Chilton, The Wealthy Barber. And in his book, he talked about saving 10% of your income. I just reversed that to 90%. I was living at home. I was a teenager. Most of my friends didn't have jobs. So if they could survive on no money, surely I could survive on 10% of what I was making. So I was investing $800 a month and did that for about a year and a half or so. And it was great. I had $11,000 at the end of my first year. Markets went up 10% or 12% or whatever it was. But I went, there's got to be a better way to accelerate things. Remember, I'm really young. I'm 15 years old. And I learned about leverage investing, where I could get, and the graph that I did at the time was, I think if I invested $800 a month for 40 years, I'd have $9.5 million at the age of 55. And I thought, well, that's great. You could probably buy half of the country for $9.5 million. So the amount of money was crazy to me, but the time frame was very daunting. My grandparents were in their 50s. And I believed they were almost dead. Now, I have a different view on that now because I'm really close to my 50s. But was there a way to accelerate it? So I learned about leverage investing. And if I could borrow $130,000 from a bank and make payments of $800 a month, well, over that same time period, I would have several $1 million more for the same monthly contribution. And that was kind of my first light bulb when it came to leverage. And again, I did that for many years. And I thought I could get a $130,000 loan at 16. The lady at Bank of Montreal, Kitchener, laughed at me. She thought it was some kind of school project. I was in my Wendy's uniform. Maybe I should have been dressed differently. I thought I was going to get this loan. I'm like, look, I'm making $800 payments.
Right. I got a job here.
Yeah, I got a job. It's a pretty good one. And I've been making a voluntary contribution of $800 a month for 12 months. So I got a track record. Yeah, it didn't happen. Now, eventually I got loans that size, but not in the beginning. So I wanted to look, I thought, was there a vehicle out there that somebody else could make the payment? That was the light bulb for me. I got to make this payment every month. I don't want to. I want to use my $800 a month and maybe do something else or have fun. And I stumbled across real estate investing. So I would have been 16 at the time. I obviously wasn't in a position and couldn't purchase real estate, but it blew my mind that you could buy a piece of real estate and somebody else would pay for it. Like, it blew my mind. I thought, man, if everybody knew this, everybody would do it. And what I've learned over the years is the reason more people don't do it is because these type of platforms didn't exist. And there was nobody out there showing people that it could be done. The rich would teach their children, and that would be kind of it. There was nobody out there really talking about it and just sharing free information. Because we're all investors here, and we know once somebody really gets it and it's explained to them, then the light bulb goes off for them as well. Now, it's not to say there's not any risk, but all that a tenant requires is a nice place to live, a fair rent, and a nice person to deal with. That's really the magic to it. If you can meet those three things, if the property goes up in value, that's all yours. If the property gets paid down, it's all yours. You know, it was a real light bulb for me in investing, was stumbling across real estate.
So you mentioned that the rich, pass this information down to their kids, but who passes it down to you? Where did you find the interest in it?
Well, I actually, many would think that it would be my father, because he's been a realtor for many, many years. And it wasn't. I actually got my dad investing in real estate. And Gary Keller interviewed me, it was 2010 or so. And he asked that question about, he said, why don't more realtors invest in real estate? And I said, Gary, I bet you if we did a study, and this is going back 15 years or so, that the percentage of realtors that own real estate is going to be the same as the percentage of doctors and mechanics and so on. And we actually found it to be true. That just because you were a realtor didn't mean you were more likely to invest in real estate. Now, that's probably changed a little bit over the last 15 years. For me, I had nobody pouring into me about investing of any kind. I just had such a strong interest in investing from a young age, and money and finances. I would actually skip school and go to the library and read books and kind of educate myself. So it would have, the real estate thing would have been in a book that I would have read. That's where the light bulb would have went off for me. I wish I would have had somebody like me to pour into me, and somebody like the two of you to talk to me. But I didn't. I wasn't, and that's good for people that are out there. It wasn't like I grew up in a real estate investing family and I had an edge. I didn't. I just read a book.
And as you mentioned, there is very little of this kind of education that's shared in the school. Like if you want it, you've got to go seek it out yourself. They're not.
Yes.
It's not something that is taught in schools.
It isn't, and it's why I've been involved with Gary Keller's program, the Quantum Leap for young adults, since 2015, was to bring more of this education to now Quantum Leap is more than just finances, but it's a pretty big section in it, because it's just not taught in schools. There's more stuff today, but it really isn't taught. None of this stuff is.
So which investment strategies have you focused on then? Once you got started, the light bulb went off. Where'd you go from there?
Well, I would say my investment strategies have been very simple and boring to most, but have given me extraordinary results without having crazy risk. I have an 8-figure net worth in real estate doing, I guess, what I'm going to talk about now, the boring stuff. Now, I started out with small multifamily, so duplexes and triplexes. And I actually pivoted quickly and went down to single family homes, which isn't what most people would do, right? They'll go from triplexes to 50plexes or whatever. So I was doing condos, semis, and townhouses. And I liked the quality of the tenant in that type of product. And I don't want people to get confused with the quality of person, because I believe we're all equal as humans. There are different quality tenants out there, and people who invest in real estate understand that. And for me, the single family I was busy. And yes, I did have a property manager managing stuff. But the single family, especially newer single family at the time, the only thing that was really required on a monthly basis was to deposit a rent check. That was it. And I saw really good price appreciation in single family. So that's how I got started. And that was my strategy for, I would say, until the last 4 or 5 years, it was still single family. As time has gone on, for many of us in the markets that we're in, single family simply didn't work and doesn't work anymore. Prices have increased so much and rents have not kept pace with prices. They will in time probably, and rents always lag prices, but it's going to take a lot to be able to buy a townhouse in most of our markets and just rent it to a single family and have any sort of cash flow. It's almost impossible. So So I had to look at my market differently, and I encourage you to look at your markets a little differently too. You might have been used to just walking into a builder and buying a townhouse yourself or selling a townhouse to a client. And that's what I was doing in my market. And then as prices started increasing, you look at your market differently. And then maybe you buy a bungalow, and then prices go up and bungalows don't work, and you convert that bungalow to a duplex. And prices go up and numbers don't work, and you add a tiny home in the backyard. There's I say there's always opportunity in every market. It can just be harder to find. I bought probably 15 single family homes during the beginning of, they weren't all homes. Most of them were condos at the beginning of COVID. So there are still those opportunities out there. They're harder to find. I've had to pivot now into more of the multifamily properties, and now into developing properties in other provinces. So it's more multifamily now.
So before we go there, though, you talked about like what you were doing at the beginning. You quote unquote called it boring. I guess not easy, but in your mind, the path of least resistance. But there must have been some challenges in there too. So let's talk about, some of the bigger challenges when you were starting out and how you overcame them.
Well, I think for the biggest challenge for me, and I think for most people when they're starting out, is thinking they have to find the perfect property. It's got to have the percentage of rent to purchase price. It's got to have a certain cap rate and so on. I think that's for most people. And the way that I overcame that is I said, next weekend, I'm going to look at all the triplexes in my city and I'm going to buy what I think is the best one. And the next weekend, I'm going to look at all the duplexes and I'm going to buy what I think is the best one. And were they the best investments? Maybe, maybe not. But I was now in the market. And taking action, I believe, has been the biggest key to my success. And Sandy, I said this on a call with you a few weeks ago, but down the road, I believe people will say Jeff and Sandy and Rob are so successful investing in real estate because they bought properties when they were so cheap in 2021 and 2022.
It's just when we entered the market. That's all there is to it.
And who thinks properties are cheap right now? Well, I'm going to say probably nobody thinks they're cheap. Have they come down in price? Sure, but nobody thinks they're cheap. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that people are going to say that down the road, but it's been a very similar story with me over the last 23 years that people will say, well, yeah, you're successful because you bought in 08 or 2013 or 2018 or whatever. If you think properties are going to be cheaper 10, 15, 20 years from now, I think you're going to be wrong. So for me, it's been pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
It has now there's lots of other challenges too. I could talk about, financing issues and that kind of stuff. But I think the biggest challenge for most is thinking they need to find the perfect property, and having a property in the market is better than waiting to find the perfect property.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I used to do investor tours in Durham, and that would be the advice that I would give them. I'm like, look, maybe this isn't the 100% best property that you could ever invest in, but we're taking 5 or 6 properties that we're seeing today. We'll pit them against each other. And one person might think that this one is better than that one, but all we're doing is comparing what we saw today. It's all we can do. Right.
Yeah. No question.
And then at some point you've got to accept the fact that maybe you've learned enough about, how to get started that you need to take the step.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Another one that I can think back to the beginning and one that I talk about a lot to people is make sure the person that's speaking to you is valid to speak to you. Because we often take advice from people that aren't valid to give us advice. And my first experience in that was that first triplex that I bought and I bought a condo before that turned into an investment property, but that triplex was my first on purpose investment purchase. And I had a home inspector that we'd used in our business for years. And we sat down at McDonald's on Highland Road and he said, don't buy this property. Just don't, you need to run. And so then what came to mind right away is I said, well, okay, how many investment properties do you own? And he said, none. And I said, do you own the house you live in? No, I rent. And I instantly stopped listening to everything he had to say. Now, if he said the chimney needed to be repointed, well, I listened to that sort of stuff, but he was not valid to give me any advice on investing in real estate. The reason we listen to those people out there, or those naysayers, is because they're the only ones talking. So that's why we listen to them.
The water cooler conversation is like, does the place have toilets? You go, yeah. So run. Don't buy it.
I know. they had a friend who had a cousin that knew of somebody that knew a lawyer that had a client that they're whatever. Like
the house fell down on top of everybody that lived in it.
Just make sure they're valid to talk to you. Just ask 3 questions deep. It's not that the person needs to own 20 investment properties. If they've owned one, I would listen to that person, but if they're 57 years old and they've rented their whole life, they're not valid to give you advice on real estate investing.
And then you talked about obviously the financing piece being a big challenge as well, but we're going to sort of shift over because now you're still investing, but you've sort of made a shift into the mortgage space.
Well, I've been a mortgage broker and a real estate broker since 1998. So I got into both at the same time. And the story behind the mortgage broker piece for me, I always loved numbers. So math was my thing, but my dad was in real estate and I was working in his office, just doing office stuff. And one of my roles was getting the offer and the MLS listing over to the mortgage person for financing. And I was just so frustrated with how long that process took and how long things just sat on someone's desk. So I said, I think I can do this. And I actually got licensed in both at the very same time.
And then you did. Is it right to say you kind of went down the mortgage broker path a lot more than the realtor side over time, or how did you choose one or the other? What was because you had the opportunity, I would assume, like to get into the realtor side pretty heavily too, if you wanted to. That's a fair statement. I would say the mortgage end of things has been much bigger for me than the real estate end of things. Now saying that, Sandy, I've been the #1 Keller Williams agent in GCI in Canada, I think once or twice. So there are times where I do a ton of real estate as well. It's I've never looked at it as two separate things. I've always done both. So my role on our team on the real estate side would be more the mentoring and coaching of investor clients, and then we have buyers agents on our team, and then I still am a support on the listing side. So there are listings I will do on the buyer side. We have buyers agents for that. But financing has really been my forte. There's no question. Has that helped you in your career, either one of those roles? How has that helped and affected your investment side? Because we mentioned already, realtors generally don't invest in real estate. You're different in that, but how has that affected things? Has that helped you?
Yeah, it had. The financing has, having a good understanding of that, because I know where to go to get deals done. And I say that to agents and clients all the time. Make sure you have somebody on the financing end of things that can look at your situation right now and put you in a position to do what you don't even know you want to do yet. Where most of us will just walk into our bank or walk into a broker that we've been dealing with forever. Well, odds are they might finance one investment property a month or one a year in a lot of cases. So getting the expertise is very important, and well, you guys know it's a big piece in succeeding in investment investment real estate is being able to get deals financed, because you reach a ceiling, right, with most lenders. Mm-hmm. If you're just looking at things based on GDS and TDS, well, for most of us, we're going to own 1 or 2 properties and that's it. So it's helped me, and it's also helped a lot of our clients too, having somebody on board that understands investment financing.
Yeah. Okay. How do you end up doing that? You mentioned buying 15 condos, a couple of years ago, and to most people they go, "Well, I can't even qualify for one more." How do you end up doing that? What type of financing are you looking into for that?
Well, the way you qualify for, if you're doing 1 or 2 or 3 properties, it's going to be based on GDS and TDS, and they'll add a percentage of the rental income to your income, and you're going to qualify for anywhere between 0 and 3 properties. To go beyond that, you need to deal with lenders that deal with, you know, debt coverage ratio and rental offsets and that sort of thing. So if you look at somebody that's buying, you know, 5 or 10 or 15 properties, or somebody that's buying a 1,000-unit apartment building, the way those deals are financed is based on the strength of the property. So in a normal deal, if you're buying a condo, they look at you first and the property second. When you're buying bigger stuff or multiple properties, they look at you second. It's does the property work, and then, oh, is the borrower okay? That's how, in simple terms, the bigger stuff is financed. The property has to have enough cash flow to support itself.
Yeah.
So in something like what you were talking about, that would have been like a portfolio loan over those, like that was a, you know, a group of properties sold together.
It actually wasn't. So these ones were all purchased individually on different closing dates, but it was still underwritten the same way. So it's not a blanket mortgage on those 15 condos. They're actually all individual mortgages. Most of the time, it's not going to be done that way. It is going to be a blanket or a portfolio lend, but there are cases where you can do them individually, and then I would just add a new one to the portfolio as they came up. And actually, to talk about those condos, because when we say opportunity in markets, this particular building that I purchased these properties in Kitchener, most people looked at this building, and it's an older building downtown. Condo fees are extremely high, and I was buying these properties for $175 to $205. I think that's the highest price I paid. And people looked at these at the beginning in March 2020 and went, they were selling for $125,000 2 years ago. Like $200,000 is crazy. I don't ever care what something used to sell for. If it used to be less, that's actually evidence to me that it could be more. I don't get caught up in what I used to be able to buy it for. So these didn't have any cash flow, none of them. So you had to be able to service that negative cash flow on these properties. Where I saw the upside on these was actually was price appreciation. They were the bottom of our market. Well, fast forward to January, February, March, they're now selling $325 to $380 a unit. And do the math on that times 15. Yeah. So yeah, I had a negative cash flow, but I probably had, you know, $1.5 million to $2 million in upside in terms of price appreciation. Even now with things softening, they're still selling in the threes.
You know, I do think that mentality is interesting too, because a lot of people have that. Well, what did it sell for last year? Or how much did they buy it for? Right. And I do get that question quite a bit. And it is difficult to try to help people understand that doesn't matter. Like you're looking at what it is here and now, not what it used to be. Right. Maybe they've done improvements on it. You don't know, you know, but the market's increased, all of that stuff. And I have just a little bit of a personal story here, but I recently purchased something. And then a friend of mine who happened to know the seller contacted me and said, you know, I'd hate to tell you what the person bought that for. You know, I hope they're giving you a good deal. And I went, do you think I actually care what they bought it for? I hope they're doing well. That's the whole reason they bought that property and sat on it, and now it's appreciated, and they're making money off it on the sell side. That's what we all do. Why would someone think that, you know, that would bother me, or I should try and, you know, oh really? Like maybe I'll back out. Maybe I'll try and haggle a couple more dollars out of this. Like, I think when the deal looks good on paper, it looks good on paper. When you agree to a price and everybody's happy, I think that says a lot too.
Oh, all those condos I bought, people double or tripled their money. Mm-hmm. All of those sellers made double or triple what they paid for them, and I think that's awesome. So I bought condos in a particular building at $49,000, at $141,000, at $275,000, and at $414,000, all for the same.
In the same
building, and I don't care. I do care what it used to be worth, because it provides me evidence that it could be worth more in the future.
Right.
I don't go, oh, I missed out on it. No, I didn't miss out on it.
That's proof that there's a good chance that it's in a location that's really attractive, and it's gonna, you know, whatever reason it's valuable. It's probably gonna keep being valuable. I mean, there's a lot of other factors.
Sure.
But yeah, that's a really good mindset on those. It's definitely goes against the norm of how
It does.
people
Yeah.
how people
Yeah.
look back on things.
I know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So you have leaned sort of more heavily over to the lending side of things.
Yep.
So why did you do that?
I think from a personal standpoint, I could get a lot more done. So I could arrange 20 mortgage. I don't, but I could arrange 20 mortgages in a day. It's impossible in most situations to take 20 buyers out in a day and sell 20 buyers homes. And I felt I was a greater value to the clients in being able to figure out the financing end of things than I was the real estate. And I still do real estate as well, but I could just get so much more done on the financing side than I could on the real estate, and more control over my time. You never have to put a mortgage client in your car and show them houses.
So when you're working with investor clients, for the most part, these aren't people, well, they've probably got good jobs, but they're not buying the higher end properties. For the most part, we're buying entry level properties, and the financing is a little more tricky. So you sort of put yourself in a position where, you're not going to make as much money on the transactions, and you're not going to, it's not going to be as easy. It's not the low hanging fruit, but you chose to do that just in order to be able to help the clients on.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed in my career helping the average person become wealthy. That's really meant a lot to me. It doesn't mean I haven't or won't do, like, I've sold $50 million apartment buildings to billionaires like that. But
that sounds fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A funny story. So I'm doing I think it was like a $30 million mortgage for this client. And this is 15 years ago. And I'm like nervous, sweating. They're coming to the office to sign for me, hopefully to sign the documents. And he walks in my office, he sits down, he says, "I got 2 minutes. Show me where to sign." That was my biggest mortgage ever. And it took 2 minutes. It was crazy. Investor clients, and you guys have probably experienced this, are very loyal too. And as a realtor or as a mortgage person, you can do multiple pieces of business every year with the same individual. They're very loyal when you do right by them.
When you help people make money, they're in general in life. When you help people make money, they're appreciative and loyal. Definitely.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely. You mentioned Kitchener a bunch of times. Is Kitchener, Waterloo, is that your only focus? Is that where you've bought all of your properties? Is it just the majority of them, or have you ventured out in any other markets?
Yeah, I would say it is it soon actually won't be the majority, but right now it is the majority are in Kitchener, Waterloo. And I've always had a buy and hold mindset. I've flipped properties too, but it's always a buy and hold. I never try to time the real estate market. I buy and hold. That's where wealth is created, in buying and holding. I have started doing some stuff in other provinces in Nova Scotia and Alberta. And people say, well, why did you pick those two provinces? Well, it isn't because I think they're the two best places to invest in Canada outside of my market. I just have individuals that I've known and mentored over the years that happen to be in those provinces. Mm-hmm. And that means a lot to me, to have somebody I know and trust there, rather than just randomly picking somebody and investing. So in Nova Scotia, we've purchased land that we're now building 8 plexes on. And in Alberta, it's there's a couple apartment buildings that I have under contract, condo apartment buildings, and then a bunch of duplex semis and duplex townhouses. And it's just math. The numbers make sense. You can buy a duplex townhouse in the 300s and a 1,500 or 1,800 square foot brand new duplex semi in the 400s. Where you can't do that in my area anymore.
Well, which markets in Alberta did you mention? Is
Edmonton.
Calgary, Edmonton?
Yeah.
And I was going to say which markets in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, they're smaller communities. So the major centers there, the math still makes sense in the major centers. I like the small communities like Kempville and Wolfville that, about an hour and a half from the major centers. The rents are about the same. Land is really cheap. There's not a lot of rentals in those areas, and there's a huge demand. There's lots of opportunity out there.
Cool. Yeah, I see people going out east a lot more of late from Ontario primarily, and venturing out that way. I think COVID has definitely played a bit of a factor in that, and people just migrating that way. In general.
Now, I still always say to people, look in your own backyard first. So look for opportunities where you are. I think especially when you're first starting out, that's always been my advice, is look for something where you are first.
Keeps it simple for sure, which is often the easiest way to take action, is if it's as simple as possible. When you start overcomplicating it, generally, if you go to different places and there's a lot more variables, you're not as comfortable. It's usually a little bit of a deterrent towards taking action. Versus in your backyard, it's easier to get in the market, like we've said already on this episode about how important that is. And so, that's one of the reasons I like you were talking about single families, and like the simplicity of those are just, it's so much easier to just jump in and do it, because there's just a lot less to work through. And once you do one of those, you can decide if you can go on to something bigger, more complex and everything, and decide from there. But I think early on, keeping it simple is really beneficial for the most part. Keller Mortgage Canada, let's talk a bit about that, because you've transitioned in a way your mortgage business, and love to know a bit more and tell our listeners more about what that means and what the benefits or what the difference is in that compared to your traditional mortgage brokerage.
And it definitely isn't something that I needed to be a part of, but it really aligned with who I am. And there were really, I guess, three main reasons that I decided to be involved in bringing Keller Mortgage to Canada. And the first would be to have a positive influence on KW Realtors' lives, to protect their businesses and keep their clients in their ecosystem, and helping keep that client, their client for life. Next would have been to create opportunities for those around me and for KW Associates across the country as we grow. Creating opportunities for others has always been a big thing for me. We all come from different circumstances and different opportunities, and helping other people succeed is really important to me. It's like Gary Keller, like I admire Gary Keller, and I had lunch with him a couple of weeks ago in Austin in his office. And if you know Gary will have the word realtor on his gravestone. He's actually said that. He'll have realtor on his gravestone. Yeah. Gary Keller doesn't need to go to work every day. He's a billionaire, but he doesn't need to go to work every day and do what he does. The reason he does it is his care and concern for realtors and protecting realtors' businesses. So for me to be a part of that and to be in business with him, I think it was an absolute no-brainer. And I don't know this, but I'm going to guess that the majority of Gary's income does not come from Keller Williams, yet the majority of his time is spent on Keller Williams, which is just amazing. We're very lucky to have him, still heavily involved in this organization. The last would have been to be able to give back more and to support the causes that are very dear to me, and primarily our Ghana Love initiative, with the work that I do in Ghana, Africa, that I've done for the last 12 years or so. But to just take that to a whole new level was another reason that I wanted to get involved.
Cool. How does that happen? How does that tie in? Is there, I think sounds exciting. How does that affect? How does a consumer or an investor or an agent out there? How does that actually work?
Well, so people could make a donation at ghanalove.org if they wanted to make a donation to the charity. But on the mortgage end of things, for every, even just simply a referral to Keller Mortgage, we plant a tree in Ghana and plant a tree in Canada. But on every funded mortgage, a month of schooling is provided as well to a child in Ghana. And then we give a large sum of money as an organization every month to that initiative as well. But people arranging financing. It's really we wanted Keller Mortgage to be a company that makes a difference and doesn't just arrange mortgage loans.
Cool. It's definitely different than working with a traditional lender in some way here.
Well, and Keller Mortgage US and Keller Mortgage Canada are the only two mortgage companies out there that were not built to do mortgages. Like it isn't the purpose behind them is to grow a mortgage business. It's to grow and protect realtors' real estate businesses, which is really cool, and neat to be a part of.
Awesome. Question, because I think maybe some listeners probably would want to understand that a bit more, is can a regular consumer go to Keller Mortgage Canada to arrange a mortgage? Do they have to work with a Keller Williams agent in that sense?
No, they don't. So anybody, I guess we're an equal opportunity brokerage. There are certain perks that are available to borrowers if they are using a Keller Williams agent, and those perks would not be available if they weren't.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. We talked a lot about this just recently. I'm sure there's a tie-in with Ghana and all that, but what motivates you now? What inspires you? What's exciting about everything you're doing with all these investments and all these investments?
What motivates me each day is being able to have a positive impact on someone's life. And I actually get up each day and I ask myself that question: whose life can I make better today? You reach a point, and I've been there for many years, where it isn't about the money. You're not going to work every day so that you can put food on the table, or buy another car. For me, it's just, whose life can I make better today? Who can I have a positive impact on? That's really what motivates me day to day.
That's cool.
You're getting thousands or tens of thousands here today with the show, so that's awesome. So it's I'm sure there's lots of value people are taking away here.
You wrote a book, is that correct?
Yeah, I did. I would say I wrote that book when I was a teenager, kind of. So I was keeping track of things that I was doing, mainly financial, from the age of 14. And I did want to write a book at 16, but I didn't feel I was valid enough. So I kept taking notes. And in my late 20s, I was ready to do that. I wrote, the book is The Millionaire Father. I wrote the book first and foremost for my kids to have some sort of path to follow. Now they were 2 and 3 years old at the time, but although I am just their dumb dad. So, and many of us have experienced that. I was on a call recently and I didn't know my son was listening. I was on speakerphone. I didn't know he was home. And when I hung up the call, my son said, "Is that blah, blah, blah from that TV show?" And I said, "Well, yeah, why? Why would he call you? You're the dumbest person I know." Now, he's joking, but there's also some truth to that. People will listen to other people's, your kids will listen to someone else more than they'll listen to you. So it was to give them some guidance, but for all of the parents out there too, to give them some guidance on how to thrive and not struggle on a day-to-day basis. The book focuses a lot on wealth, but it's really about being a great parent, and money can help you have more time to be able to spend with your family. It is the way that anybody in your life measures love, is by the amount of time you spend with them, not the amount of money you spend on them. I guess, unless you have teenagers. Yeah.
There's a window there where the money does a little more.
The money equals love. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah. No, there is a period of time where it does, but when I say I define myself as a husband and father first and foremost, if you clearly know who you are, then everything just falls into place. So if Sandy, if you saw me at a dinner party, which you wouldn't, because I don't go to dinner parties, but if you did, and you said, "Hey, Jeff, what do you do?" My answer would be, "What do I do about what?" I would never say I'm a realtor or a mortgage broker, because it isn't who I am.
Yes.
So where do you think I am if my son has a baseball game Friday night at 7? Well, you know where I am, because I know who I am. So that's where I am. I wouldn't be at a function. I wouldn't be speaking. I would be at my son's baseball game. So I challenge people out there to just, come up with who you are, identify who you are, and then live your life that way. It's easy to make decisions once you've defined who you are.
That's awesome. I love that. I think that more people should try to live that way. I mean, I know that not everybody necessarily has that freedom, or at least they have a perception that they don't have that freedom. So I encourage people to follow that. I think it's great advice, and we only have this one life. So, to be to be support there for, your loved ones is really important.
Yeah, it is.
So where do you see your business going in the future now?
Yeah. And I've actually,
I shift right from family to just let's go right back into business. It's the next question.
So I guess the business to me is, I guess, two separate things. My real estate investing business is one, and I clearly know where I want that to go. For me there now, it is all about affordable and accessible housing. So all of the stuff that I'm looking at building and constructing has a big component of that to it. And building affordable housing in Ontario is very difficult to do. In other provinces, it's actually pretty simple to do. So my returns are going to be less. There's no question, but it's not always about, more and having more. If I can have some sort of return and give somebody a place to live that is actually affordable, that's the future of real estate investing for me. 100%. It's not about the returns. There's got to be some return. I don't want to be shelling 30 grand out of my pocket every month, but so that I guess that's where I see my real estate investing business going. My personal business, I've been thinking a lot about that lately, and lots of different things I'm thinking. So I'm not clear on that yet. My personal business, exactly how I want that to go. That, just being honest, that's
cool.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I'm sure it will follow that same path, right? Of life first, sort of, right?
Yeah.
And being able to help people. I think I like the idea of what you're saying there, is just because, again, it's sort of a like the affordable means something different in Ontario than it does in Nova Scotia or Alberta. So to have more of an impact, you do sort of need to go. Shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say more of an impact, but I guess it's less resistant to go over there and have an impact, right? And you're able to do it easier. So that's great. Yeah. I like that. Okay, let's end with what's the best piece of info or advice that's always stuck with you, and how can it help?
It's a piece of advice that I actually always have given myself, and it is that more is not always better. Now, more doesn't mean that it's worse. We often just get caught up in having more without really knowing what it is for, and can get caught up in that illness and really not enjoy what life has to offer. So when is enough enough? I think it's a good question to start asking yourself. We're taught that more is better, and I'm here to tell you the truth is that it isn't always better. So it doesn't mean that you don't strive for more, but I know an individual in my life right now that their goal is to be a billionaire, and they don't really know why they want to be a billionaire. They just want to be a billionaire, and they're 54 years old now. They work 6,000 hours a week. They never see their family. They have more money than anybody needs, and they just want more, and they don't understand why they want more. So identify why you're doing what you're doing, and then when is enough enough? So more isn't always better is something that sits with me all the time. You reach.
Or at least the compass of what that more is pointing towards, right? Like steering it away from material things.
Yes.
Pointing it more towards time with family, or
yes.
Or more fulfillment, more help for other people it is.
Money
More
is
is
money.
always good, but I think it's just where you point it.
I agree. Yep. And money is money and happiness is happiness. They're separate. And if you don't believe that, go to some third world countries. They're separate. Now there's happiness here in money to a degree. If you're making 80 to 100 grand a year as a family, there's no more happiness in $1 million a year. This isn't Jeff talking. This has been highly studied. So I'm not saying don't make $1 million. You should if you could, because you can do lots of great things with it. Just don't think that you're going to be happier if you made another $50,000 next year. Happiness is happiness. And for most of us in the part of the world that we live in, happiness is a choice.
That's awesome advice. And I always think of the people that succeed financially and are not happy is often because they don't have any purpose behind it, right? They go and make that $1 million and they go, it's like the most saddest day in their life because they go,
yes.
I thought this would feel so awesome. And it's really pretty minimal. Or if it's anything, it's like 5 minutes of fun or enjoyment. And then it's, what the heck now? It's more and more is I like you called it an illness. It definitely can be an illness. It's a very, it's very impactful on someone's health even. And in so many ways, there's so many, there's so much stress in it. There's so many things that are a byproduct of that. So it's great advice. I love it.
And it's something that's very dominant in the society that we all live in, right? Like to strive for that. It's ingrained in us. So, I mean, even just us coming here, there was a totally different way that we had to think because life is just not the same here as it is there, So it's we knew it was going to be more minimal, but the extent of how much more minimal, was actually discovered along the way. Right. And then, and I think in a very positive way.
Yeah.
So I appreciate all of that. I agree with you. How can people get in touch with you?
I guess Instagram is fine at Jeff Reitzel. So JEFFREITZEL.com. Or sorry, not .com. Instagram at Jeff Reitzel works.
Okay, cool. That's the best way?
Yep, that works.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciated you taking the time to talk to us today. I think we learned a lot.
My pleasure.
It's been great.
And
it's been great.
Sandy, how can people get in touch with you?
Instagram works too. It's Sandy McKay or Sandy at freedomreps.com. Okay.
People can reach me at rob@mrbreakthrough.ca. And thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time.